Hello, you are listening to the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. Your host, Erica Sakosio, invites you to join her community of passionate and inspiring leaders in the ECE field, where she discusses, reflects, and shares the best ways to invest in our children, families, teachers, and community. Because after all, we know they are the heartbeat of any successful program.
It is Erica here with the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. I am so excited that you are here today, and today's episode is going to be so fun because I am hanging out with my girl, Tiffany, and you're going to learn a little bit about Tiffany. But before we hop into today's episode on putting together your own podcast, there's a few things I want to say. First of all, I just came back from the Flacy conference. It was amazing. I met so many wonderful people there. If you're one of those folks that I met with, please stay connected with me. My phone number is 401-996-6447. You can call me anytime. Also, you can email me. All my emails, all the things are in the links below. But I am really worried for what the childcare families, centers, all the folks that are down in Florida who have had their businesses displaced. So this week, I'm going to reach out to folks in Florida and get them on the show. And Tiffany also happens to be from Florida. Coincidence? I don't know. But I want to help as many people as I can recover from the storm, whether it's through support, whether it's we can all help and donate. I know Flacy was doing a fundraiser, and they were going to match up to $5,000 of the funds. So please go to their website and see how you can help. It's so important. We're a community. We have to help each other and support each other. Now, that brings me to today's episode. As I have talked to so many educators, even this weekend, there were so many ladies that I talked to who said, I really wanted to do a podcast of my own. And I said, well, what's stopping you? I'm not sure how to do it. I'm like, listen, I didn't know how to do it either. And some days I think I still don't know how to do it, but that's okay. And I just think that having a mic is such a great way to spread the message. So, of course, you always know you're able to use my mic. My mic is your mic. But if you want your own mic, I think you should give it a shot. So today we are here with our expert, Tiffany, who owns Virtually You podcasting. She does pretty much anything that you need in the podcasting world. She can do it for you. She can edit. She can do your social media. She can walk you through it. She can give you templates. When I first started, I really didn't know other than I wanted to talk about things, and I like to rant. So podcasting was perfect for me. Let's talk about it. So Tiff, tell folks a little bit about yourself other than you live in Florida and we're friends.
Well, I got started with podcast managing about 4 years ago. I started my own podcast called Memories with a Beat, talking to people about music. And I just found in the editing process, I really loved it. I put my headphones on and I loved zapping words and putting it back together, and it sounded flawless. And that was just really fun for me. So then I thought, well, I would maybe like to offer this for other people. So over the last 4 years, I have taken care of, I don't even know, maybe 30 or 40 podcasters, and just help their business. Usually people are using a podcast as a lead magnet or traffic to their business. And so helping them just to grow their business, letting them focus on business, and I focus on their podcast, and usually end up making friends along the way. I still talk to all of the people who have been my previous clients, and it's just something that's very fulfilling to me. And it feels good when I have finished the episode and I send it over to them with a pretty little bow, and I'm like, here's your beautiful podcast. It's going to come out on Friday. So that's just really rewarding for me.
And I think that it is super fun to be able to get people on the mic and just really just talk. And the finished product is always really fun too. And you always know what episodes are good and what ones are like. And for those of you, once you start recording, you'll understand what we mean after. But there are some episodes that I'm like, yes, that was fire. And you just get some good guests that you just connect with, and you really can unpack a lot in an episode. So
you want to publish those the next day or
yes.
that night.
We're going to maybe try to give the folks 3 tips to launch their early childhood podcast. So one of the things I want to say that you had said, a lead magnet. So because I know there are some folks that are really struggling with getting customers into their businesses,
Sure.
right? So I use my platform for advocacy and some other things, but if you're a family child care center or a center or Head Start, whatever, and you're looking for families, this might be a great way. And maybe your podcast is about how to pick a good center, what types of things that families should look for as they're looking for a center, or just talk about the incredible programming that you have and why do you do it, right? But that's a really great way too. And I can't even tell you how many moms listen to podcasts, especially when they're working out in the morning, right? So it's just, again, like you said, a great lead magnet. So let's talk about what you think the 3 top tips could be for launching an early childhood podcast.
Well, when you're thinking about what you want the podcast to be about, I would say first and foremost, know who your avatar is or your ideal listener and your motivation behind the show. So consider when you're creating the outro and intro for your show, what do those people want to hear? So maybe you say you're marketing to families and you're trying to get more families in the door and you're going to be talking about your center. Maybe you name them the Smiths, right? And you think about the Smiths. They've got 2.5 kids and they're trying to make ends meet with trying to find a center and trying to pay for it and the stress that maybe they're going through. And you consider all these things about that family. What do they value and what are they looking for in their daycare centers? Then the content that you start to create, is this something that the Smiths will care about, right? We need to be putting content out that our ideal listeners actually care about and they want to come back to hear more about, right? You're always giving amazing tips, 5 ways to do this, 10 ways to do that, checklists or, things to think about with your staff. That's what they want. They want something that they can sink their teeth into and then apply to their centers. What do the Smiths want to hear? Do the Smiths want to hear maybe tips about bringing up children, tips about temper tantrums, and then also how that relates to your center and in the classrooms? So think about your motivation and your avatar, and then also included in that, the lead magnet. So it's just kind of for fun. But I'm guessing if it's for your childcare center, then it's a lead magnet. You're trying to grow, know, like, and trust. And it's like, by the time they come to you, they're qualified. They already know they want their children in your daycare center. They're just trying to find the address.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And parenting tips, I mean, I think what better way to connect with, especially infants, right? You have a family that just had a baby and they're not sure on, am I going to do breastfeeding? Am I going to do formula? What do I do if I'm breastfeeding and now my kid's going off to childcare? There are so many things that you can really talk about that shows you as an expert. Beyond that, you're focused on your own center, your own building a business, but just those parenting strategies and tips. I think a podcast is a great way to really show you as an expert. And then there's the show notes that can be turned into blogs, right? So people can be reading that and you use it, share it on socials. So the content just makes itself sometimes, right? It does, right? You make one little thing and then next thing you know, you're like, I can put this in my newsletter. I can put this in a blog on my website. It's a great way to really have people understand about you and the things you care about before they even pick up the phone. So,
and the beautiful part is that Instagram, you post something and 24 hours later, really probably 3 hours later, it's buried. Whereas a podcast, they come on and they maybe come and listen for one episode and then they go, actually, I really like what this daycare center is doing. Let me learn more about them. Or is there something that they're talking about that I could implement in my center or in my home? And so that content lives forever. It's always there and it's a lot more easily accessible than, I don't know, she posted something 5 days ago and I remember it was in her stories and, it's gone. It's gone. It's buried by all the other things. Yeah. Whereas, that content, our podcast episodes, those are evergreen and they're always around.
I find too, so ironically, I started my YouTube channel really for my staff. One video, I just started you know what? I didn't want to keep saying the same thing over and over. I was getting ready for a Bright Stars visit and I was like, let me put together my classroom. And we started breaking down what happens in Circle and what happens in our library area. That video has I don't even know at this point, 12,000, 13,000 views that I just made for my staff. So you could even do the same on your podcast. You can make podcasts that are separate. You can have some that are specifically for your staff. So you have to keep repeating yourself, folks, or for parents, right? So there's so many ways that you can really use this mic to get your message out. I'd say, Tiffany, for me, one of the hardest things, and it still continues to be one of the hardest things, is nailing my niche it down. And that was really hard for me because I've been in the field so long and I knew so much about all of it, the nuts and bolts and all the things, how to open a center, how to close a center, how to get a loan. I knew so much, But then, I really had to keep just fine tuning it and be like, Erica, but what's the thing? Because I'm not passionate about budgets. I mean, I'm just not. But, but the people part was the part that just ignites me. I get so excited. But yeah, that was hard, like really niching down because you want to talk about all the things in this field. We are so accustomed to truly wearing all the hats. So it's really hard when you go, well, what am I really good at? Because most childcare owners are really good at a lot of things, kind of by necessity. It's sometimes it's a lonely. What do you think would be the next thing that we should talk about?
Well, it's so interesting what you said, Erica, because the next thing on there is niche. So think about, what are you an expert on? So Erica knew that she was an expert about daycare centers. And then the next note I have here is, a confused mind doesn't buy. So if you come on, and now, Erica, you're always talking about a daycare center and running it. So that is niche down, but I like that you took it one step further and you're really starting to focus in on the people and making those connections and relationships. Okay, so whatever topic they came on to hear about. So let's say that you are talking on your podcast about potty training. Okay, and then the next time they come on, you're talking about the relationship between the mom and the dad. And then the next time they come on, you're talking about how to say goodbye to your child at the daycare center, right? It's not what they're expecting. So they come to the podcast, they're expecting advice about, raising a child because the first one they heard was potty training and they're hoping for more parenting tips. Instead, they're getting all this other advice. So it is really important to niche down and know really what you want to be talking about. And people get nervous and they say, but then, I could talk about all these things and then I would address all these people. And it's true, but when you market to everybody, you market to nobody. So you really need to know who you're talking to. And what will end up happening is you'll say, thank you for coming to this podcast where we talk about the impact of the childcare center on your actual child. And then they go, oh, that's me. That's what I'm interested in. Whereas if you just say, oh, it's a podcast about daycares, you don't know if it applies to you or not. You listen to 2 episodes and you go, okay, yep, I like this podcast. Or, oh, nope, this doesn't apply to me. So when you talk to a specific person, like the Smiths, like we talked about with the Avatar, we know that the Smiths really value this advice on bringing up their children. So we're going to keep providing that information.
That's great tips. When we all start, I would say that's probably the hardest thing because you really are like, there's just so many things to talk about. And that could probably be for any industry, anything, even with the parenting hacks, right? Or parenting tips, right? You could probably do a whole show on toilet training, biting, climbing the walls, how to keep your sanity, right? You really could just do a whole show on that. So our advice is, pick your niche as best as you can. You're not going to have it all figured out on episode 1. My episode 1 was horrific. So you just keep working. Maybe it wasn't horrific, but...
Well, I'd love to share a specific example, but there's a podcast that I listen to. I always say action brings clarity. And it's like the more you just keep putting the next foot in front of the other foot, you start to go, oh, wait, I do want to go towards that left path. Okay, so there's a podcast that I absolutely love. And it was a host and a co-host. And they would talk about these detective stories. And then what ended up happening is their listeners started writing in with all their stories. Now the podcast has kind of evolved where they interview somebody about their experiences in the dating field. And they're getting, more listens, more downloads by doing that because that's what people want to hear. So you may find that when you do your podcast, you do 12 episodes and you go, man, the ones that I'm doing about toddler life are really getting a lot of listens. That's what's resonating with people. I'm going to switch and I'm going to go more focused towards that. So I would say get your niche as best you can. And then, if you need to pivot and get even more narrow, there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. What about gearing up for greatness? So let's talk about sound quality and stuff like that, because
Erica, this is so crazy to me.
Why?
Okay, you guys, she does not know what I wrote. Okay, for my 3 points. I made up the little bulletin for myself before we even start talking. My third one is editing and recording.
So let's talk about it.
That's exactly where you were going with sound quality.
Yes, yeah.
That is absolutely crazy to me. That goes to show how simpatico we are. Anyhow, so I would say consider your recording platform. I would say StreamYard or Riverside. We are on Riverside right now. Riverside seems to offer more post-production shortcuts for people, if you will. So they both work. perfectly fine. They both give separate tracks for people, separate audio tracks per participant if you're going in and editing that specifically. But the one that Riverside does is it will give you like video clips, it'll give you sound clips. It really helps the indie podcaster, which would be you guys at this point, to be successful, to get some content that they can repurpose and put on social media, put in their newsletters, that kind of thing. So I would lean more towards Riverside, quite honestly, but they're both fine. If you already have StreamYard, go with that and, make your podcast. I would say just go messy, and you'll say, okay, this doesn't sound right. Let me get a better microphone. Okay, you get the microphone. And then you go, okay, something's still off. Let me get some soundproofing stuff, right? So you guys can see I'm in my amazing closet. This is where I like to record. There's great acoustics in the closet. So if you're doing audio only or video too, you can be authentic. This is something that people see that in the background. They go, okay, she's a real person. She's not trying to be all showy and perfect. And right, sometimes we avoid those perfect people. So it just lets you be a little bit more authentic. And then as far as post-production, Audacity and GarageBand are two free platforms. Audacity is on a Microsoft computer, and GarageBand is going to be on a Mac. And there's tons of YouTube videos that can walk you through the editing process, or you can hire somebody like me that will help you with that too, just to remove, background noise or any misspeaks, imperfections too. It just depends on how cleaned up you want it to be. And some people don't mind, and some people, want to clean it up a little bit more. It's really your preference, what you think people will resonate with. But sound quality it's pretty important. I mean, you do want to sound good. There's something called a barrier to listen. And so if you have a clicking sound in the background, or your dog's constantly adjusting their collar because they're shaking a little bit, what ends up happening is our brains want things to be easy, right? And so when you're constantly trying to filter out this additional sound, your brain gets tired and it goes, you know what, let me find something else to listen to. So that is a lot of times why people are editing and taking out background noises, just because they want it to be a more pleasurable listening experience. So I would say sound is king is what we've always said in the podcasting industry. And one way to grab that is through a microphone, which if you guys go on my website, which is virtuallyuva.com, I have a whole bunch of free resources for equipment, and it goes good, better, best. So when you're just starting out, start out small, make sure you like podcasting. And if you really like it and you think, yep, this is something I really want to stick with, then, take the opportunity to upgrade equipment and improve your sound if you want.
So, and when you had said, the barrier to listen, is that why so many podcasts will put music in the background, just really low behind the
music in the background really builds like intensity. So okay. I know Wondery does it on a lot of theirs, and it's more suspenseful podcasts. Okay. You can put sound effects in to lighten it up or whatever, too. I have one podcast client, and she didn't expect it the first time she did it. And so she was like, cue the mariachi band. And so I put a little sound in there that sounded like a mariachi band. And then she's done it in a couple more episodes now. So I'm like, okay, that's my cue. She wants me to put that in for her again. But yeah, there's ways to infuse things like that with music and stuff.
And so let's talk about consistency and scheduling and sticking to your groove, right? So talk a little bit about that, because I know when you and I first started working together, and you're like, you put out podcasts. How often? Are you gonna burn out? Are you sure you can, keep up that level? It was my first year. Yeah. And in October, we were really ramping up, and we were getting lots and lots of downloads. And then, the holidays, it slowed down. But then I was like, well, I also hadn't released any new episodes. But I can tell you, January was popping. January was popping. I don't know if that was everybody going to the gym and, listening to music on the treadmills or what, or people just in January were all excited. We're going to take on the world and do all the new things. My advice to you is, if you're going to release it, I'd say January is a really good month, especially if it's a new year kind of episode, topic, podcast type of thing. I would say that was my experience anyway.
So we buy from people that we know, like, and trust, right? We want to partner with them. We want to collaborate with them. And so when people can trust you, when they say, okay, every Monday, without doubt, without fail, every Monday a podcast episode comes out, you're growing the trust factor, right? You're growing the dependability factor. So you're letting them know who you are as a person of integrity and consistency. So that's great. Then the other thing is that I always tell people, everybody asks, I mean, it's probably one of the number one asked questions, how frequent should I release a podcast? And the reality is it's whatever you have bandwidth for. So if you can do it twice a month, do it twice a month. If you end up loving it and you're getting a ton of downloads and you're like, wait a minute, this is really going somewhere, you can bump up. But what we don't like to see, podcast managers never recommend doing like 4 episodes and then bumping down to 2. So if you're on the fence, start with 2. Get a groove. Okay, now I think I can take on more. Nobody's getting mad that you're giving more content, but people may be disappointed when you give less content. And as far as taking a season break, you can do 2 different things. So you can let your audience know, hey, you guys, just to let you know, we're nearing the end of season 5, so we're going to take a break for the month of November. I know you're seeing family and you may not have time to consume new episodes. We will be releasing some fan favorites from the past, but we're going to take a break from new content and we're going to enjoy our family, and we're going to see you back in January for brand new content. So as long as you just let your listeners know what your plan is, when they can expect to get new content from you again, that's not a bad idea. It's a very common strategy just to let your audience know what you're going to do. And when you're going to come back and listen to another podcast, it's by a very famous person, and I love her content. And that's what she does. She actually ended up getting breast cancer. And so she just let everybody know, I'm going through a hard time. I'm not done. I'll be back in 2 months. I'm going to take care of my treatment. I'm going to take care of myself, and I'm coming back. So there's nothing wrong with taking a break. There are times that our life just kind of demands that. And I know that you had done a couple of revisited episodes, and I can't remember what you called them, if it was fan favorites or something to that effect.
Yeah, I think I might have just called re-releases or something, but yeah.
And I have a lady who, on Wednesdays, she interviews people. She ran out of interviews and she just called it Rewind Wednesday. And she re-aired a couple of those episodes so that she could stay consistent. Her people still knew she was there. And maybe it was something that they didn't hear before. So there's nothing wrong with doing that.
Yeah. The other thing that I did on those days I needed a little bit of a buffer was you could do a pod swap. So you could be on other people's podcasts and you can bank those. And so if you need a day, you can say, hey, I was on the XYZ podcast. I think you would love it. Here's the episode. I want to share it with you. So I found that was great. And speaking of that, the community of women podcasters in ECE is incredible. So there are so many, and I'm probably going to forget some, but like there's Noelle from the Directors Club, who literally I met at a conference, is a sweetheart, and we are doing some big things together. I can't remember the name, but the women in ECE podcasting are rock stars. And so not only having your ECE community to support you and be there, but like there's just this like woman sisterhood. And if there's a guy podcast out there, we haven't met yet, but don't worry, I'm going to find you. And so you have another layer of support and camaraderie. It's been really fantastic, to be quite honest.
So Erica, I want to caution one thing. So what you're doing right now is correct. When you're on another podcast, same genre, totally great to throw those episodes in. Now, let's say on an off chance you came on my podcast and you talked about music. I would not do that one as a pod swap. Because your listeners are interested in finding out things about daycare centers. And now all of a sudden you're throwing this podcast at them about music, but it's just not what they were expecting. It's kind of like when I was talking about niching down. What you have done so far is perfect, but just caution to everybody else if you go on and it's about a different topic. And then the other thing that we've been working on is a playlist on Spotify for Erica. So you guys can hear all of those episodes that she has been on, and you can hear, the questions that they asked and the advice. And that is actually the number one way to grow your podcast. So if you start a podcast, try to be a guest on a few podcasts, because it is the number one strategy to grow a podcast right now, is to go on and be interviewed by somebody else. And basically you get exposed to their listeners. So if they have 200 listeners, you just got exposed to 200 new people, and they may just go check out your podcast.
So I just want to make sure that golden nugget does not get missed on you. 100 out of 100%, they're listening to a podcast, guys. But 100 out of 100 people listening to a podcast, listen to podcasts. That's a no-brainer, right? We spend all our time on how many Instagram followers, how many Facebook people. Forget all that. If you want to grow your podcast fast, definitely go where the podcast people are, right?
Find out where they hang out.
Awesome.
They hang out on podcasts.
So, Tiff, before we wrap it up, Is there anything that I didn't ask you or anything that you think we really need to contribute to this episode before we head on out?
No, you read my mind on my 3 most important points, which was the avatar and motivation, niching down, and then your editing and recording. There is a checklist on my website if people want to go check it out. It is to start your podcast, and it goes over these a little bit more in depth. And that is at www.virtuallyouva.com. It's free. You just download it, and you can start kind of brainstorming what you want your podcast to look like.
Yeah. So all my childcare friends out there, if you want to, 1, advocate and you're shy, great way to do it. 2, build your brand, great way to do it. 3, look for more families and get them to know you and trust you, great way to do it. So as always, it's the small details that make a big impact on the success of your childcare business. I'm tuning out for the day. This has been your host, Erica Scotia with the Childcare Director's Chair.
Well, all the cute little kiddos have been picked up and it's time to go home. And that'll do it for another episode of the Childcare Director's Chair. Please leave a review so Erica knows the information is helping you to manage and improve your childcare centers. Remember to subscribe to get the latest episode from Erica's Childcare Director's Chair.